Hey, ladies and gentlemen, if you are listening and enjoying the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast, please share the podcast with at least one friend. Also, rate and leave a comment in iTunes as it truly helps the show. I love interacting with you guys, so please go visit the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast on Facebook and Instagram and connect with me. I really like it when I get the feedback and just see what you guys are actually doing. And this is some great news. If you are attending Podcast Movement 18 in Philadelphia in July, make sure you come by and say, "Hey, Emmett, how you doing?" during my Pod Passion seminar.
Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle. Today, I have two different worlds that literally come together. And they come together in this beautiful woman named Carolyn Coleridge, LCSW, psychotherapist and intuitive healer. How are you, Carolyn?
I'm doing great today. Wonderful.
So I'm going to go back. I always go back before I go now and forward. And you are a licensed clinical social worker, correct? So it means you have your master's degree.
Absolutely, from Columbia. Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's very academic. Now, as an intuitive healer, that's kind of the opposite of academic. How did those two come to being? Was this something that you had in your core as a child and teenager and moving into adult, and then it just manifested, or you knew these two worlds were going to come together at some point?
It's a great question, because that's what my book, Honor Your Spirit's about, and I did not think it's going to come together. I actually was studying at Conservative Columbia, which is the oldest social work school in the United States, and as I was there studying in a very conservative environment, I started to see ghosts all the time, and I would just I would wake up and see ghosts, and they would bump my bed, and they would try to talk to me. It was just bizarre. I was like, what in the world is going on here? I thought it was Columbia's dorm. And my mother had a lot of mediumship and psychic experiences, intuitive experiences, so she had talked about them. I just thought it was her. I didn't think I would have them, and I didn't know what to do with it, so I ended up going to a healer and a reader, and she said, "Oh, you're supposed to be incorporating this work into what you're doing." Now, it's important to know I was 27 at the time, and at 27, usually hits around 29.5, there's something called the Saturn return, and I think it's really important that people learn about it, that our soul goes through 7-year cycles.
Oh, say it again. Say the 7-year cycle.
It goes through, every 7 years our soul recalibrates and says, what are you here for? What did you come? What are you accomplishing it? And where are your next goals? So at 4 times 7 is 28, so around 28 is when it really hits, but it's called the Saturn return. It's when the planet Saturn sits in the same place it does when you were born. And so our souls come in here, of course, to grow and learn. I heard on your podcast you said the same thing. We're spirits. We come here, and after we get our experiences done, we go back home. So it's like kind of bringing you back on course and saying, what are you really here for? So I was here to be a therapist, I thought. But so, if you think about the 7-year cycles, at age 7, the kids are a little bit more aware, and they talk back a little bit more. They are kind of retaining more information. At age 14 is when you go into officially high school generally. At age 21, you're officially an adult. Yep. And at 28, that's when your Saturn return comes. So, and that's when a lot of people are like, oh my God, what's going on? And why am I here? And like your work, your life, your health, your relationships, family, everything can come up and like be completely array. And if you look at all the rock stars who died at age 27, besides Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, Janis Joplin, Morrison, it's a time of the deep, it's kind of like the dark night of the soul. And you either go with what your heart wants and your soul's destiny, or if you go against it, you usually have a really hard time. And I'm guessing these rock stars were so famous and popular, but they had all these demons they didn't work through. That's why they kind of overdosed, etc. This is just my theory. But so that was happening to me. So all these ghosts were coming up, and I'm like, what in the world is happening? And then she told me how to protect myself energetically, and she kept saying, you're going to do this work. And then I protected myself by putting like the guardian angels around me, and then it went away. But what's interesting in mental health, you'll be surprised how many people see shadows, how many people have had deja vu or intuitive experiences or dreams that come true or aha moments. So it's really helped me help people who think they're losing their freaking mind and they're really just opening up to their spiritual realm, knowing that they're spirits here on the earth plane having an earthly experience.
So what was that transition like for you going from one mindset to another? I mean, you said it was at 28. Was it an epiphany like, oh, you got some advice and was like, okay, I'm going to do that? Or was it like, let me see how this is going to work. Let me digest this.
Number two. I'll pick number two. It definitely was the second one. It was definitely scary because I didn't know who to tell. I told my mother, and she's like, oh, so you're opening up like me and your grandmother. Okay, fine. Pass the potato salad. Like, she didn't think it was anything very bizarre. She just says you're just aware of your spirit, and, you know, the ghosts are coming to talk to you.
Yeah.
So that would happen to her all the time. But my mother was a science teacher. So she was the first black woman to head a science department in Connecticut, and actually John Mayer, his father, was my mother's boss. You know, so she like preceded him, and she also taught physics and biology.
Wait, did you say John Mayer? Like,
yeah, the singer. Yeah, yeah. His father, Dr. Mayer, was my mother's boss.
Yeah, he's got a real connection to sound. That's the way I'm putting it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it was just kind of ironic. It wasn't until, you know, he said, "Oh, I went to take care of my father in Connecticut." I'm like, wait a minute, that can't be the same person. I'm like, oh, wow. But my mother preceded him, you know, the first black woman to do that. But so she was very, you know, conservative. She went to Columbia. She went to teacher's college. She taught about chemistry and science and physics and biology. She was an excellent chemistry teacher. And she won an award from Williams College, Teacher of the Year. But she had mediumship experiences. Her relatives would come to her and tell her when she was leaving. She had dreams about how to get the right score on the exam so she can get into college to go to school. And then she wake up and get dreams about how to study. So that kind of background gave me information that this is not that strange. But I was terrified. I was like, I don't really want to find out what's going on. But I was pulled to go to a spiritualist church where people like connect to spirits. I was pulled to go to a Science of Mind church, which is what your mind thinks about, you create. So that would be like the book You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, or Agape in California, where Michael Beck was. So I was pulled to the spiritual. I was like, wow, why is the spirit pulling at me? And then sometimes I sit with people and I would see these colors around them, and I'm like, oh, that's their aura, and I would do research. And it just seems like, it's just like when kids are 2 and they're like, no, me, mine, no. And the minute I was 28, like all these different spiritual experiences were happening, you know, leaving my body or having out-of-body experiences. And I was nervous, but when I started doing research and people are like, oh, no, that's normal, and reading about Judith Orloff, who's a psychiatrist, used her intuition, or another woman, Doreen Virtue, who's really into spirituality, I said, oh, okay, so there are therapists who have that, because a lot of therapists are intuitive anyways. They just don't go as far down the rabbit hole as I have gone, and they don't take the red pill, you know. They just kind of stay in there. But but what I did is I felt a connection to God with some of these spiritual experiences and source, and I said, I started to dialogue with him, and I just started to open up, because I did different types of spiritual, like Reiki and healing. They all talked about honoring God, and I would feel energy from people, or I would know things about them. I'm like, well, who is giving me this information? And I connected to knowing it was the Holy Spirit and it was God's work. So as I connected to God, I would dialogue and ask him, you know, should I be doing this work? Should I combine it? And then more people would call me, or more people say, oh my God, you changed my life, or more situations would happen at the right place at the right time, where people would come back and tell me how much I've helped them. So I realized it was definitely a gift from God, and now you see a lot more people are doing a combination of both things. And then I work at a major HMO, and I'm teaching mindfulness, and I teach about spirit, and it's really come together because so many souls on the planet are like, what are we here for?
Yeah.
What is going on? Yeah, and they want to fulfill their purpose, because I think the planet's getting overcrowded, and a lot of us don't want to come back. So we want to be able to do our work, do it well, inspire other people, and then move on, move back home.
I said that. I said, I'm not coming back. I felt this a couple of years ago. I'm not coming back. But then it changed. I was like, there might be something else, because I like exactly who I am right now. I love this life.
Wow, awesome.
I really like this life. And it's funny because people say, how do you look so young? I was like, I don't F people over, for one, and I just let it flow. But let's talk about your books a little bit here. So you have two books. You have Honor Your Spirit, and you have How to Work with the Universe. How to Work with the Universe was first, correct?
No, the other one was first. How to Work with the Universe is a workbook for Honor Your Spirit. So I took out the workbook part of it because I teach people, as long as telling my story, how I opened up to the spiritual realm and help many people. So it has little worksheets and lessons that you can work on daily.
Oh, cool. So do you interact with people remotely, or do they have to be literally in your presence or within your proximity for you to have communication or higher level of communication with them?
So I do, I am a therapist, a traditionally trained therapist, and I do work at Cayce, with major HMO, and I do therapy there, and I actually teach how to work with the universe there, but I call it return to work aftercare, because, and in terms of answering your first question, I can do things remotely because the spirit has no time or place, and I can tune in and tap into people's energy in their field, and I have visions, I see visions about people, what they're supposed to be doing, situations, anything that helps them get on their path and their purpose and helps them connect to source. I can kind of see or hear, and people would always say, oh my God, I was just thinking about that, or I was just doing that, and I was, thinking about doing that, but I'm nervous, and I would help them move forward with how to move forward. And it's almost like I'm a gatekeeper, or if you're at a bus stop, you're like, I don't know which way to go. I would be the bus attendant saying, okay, you need to take this path if you want to get here, or you need to take that path. And what I do is help people to activate their own spirit inside of them. That's my biggest joy, is to help other people know that they're a spirit and how that they can connect to their spiritual essence, their aha moments, their higher self, and help them to find their own path, in which what we really do, because we're all powerful beings of light. Yeah. We just have forgotten. We've forgotten. Yeah. So, but I teach this stuff at Kaiser, or the HMO I work for. I teach it there, and I teach people how to connect to totem animals, which is Native American. If they see certain animals and they look them up, a lot of times they're supposed to be leading them on the path. Or if they get signs, synchronicity, and messages, that if something said to you 3 times in a row, I think that's the universe talking to you. When I say the universe, I really mean God. Yeah. So many people are having a hard time with religion, in recovery from Catholicism or detoxing from Judaism, or whatever it may be. So I use the word universe, and that tends to make people more open, but I really feel God is the universe, and the universe is God. And he's it's the source, and he's like the source of income, the source of energy, the source of wisdom, the source of inspiration, the greatest artist, and that we need to he sent us here, so I figure, let me ask him what he wants me to do. And as I connect to him regularly, and people can do that through various ways, dreams, aha moments, synchronicity, messages, signs, and what happens is that you start to find your own path and open up to creating the life that you really were here to live.
Awesome. So what's the diaspora of your clients and who seek you out, and do they usually have a direct premise, or is it like a referral from another kind of source, or do they find you online? So who are these people, and how do they find you?
Yeah, I get a lot of word of mouth. A lot of people, my sisters, cousins, brothers, came to you. So that's one way. I teach classes around LA, and sometimes people find me that way. They see me at a meditation center teaching, or to various places I go, and they'll follow up later. And the internet, I guess people Google, and they look for, a lot of people say they look for spiritual therapists or spiritual healing, and they find me. So that's another way. And all different ethnicities, colors, people, races, ages. I guess the highest percentage would be women, though, a really high percentage of women. I think women are naturally very intuitive, though men have their gut instinct and their own intuition, absolutely. But I get a lot of women, and a lot of people around 27 to 29 before their Saturn hits, because that's, again, when we're going to go back to our soul. And I feel like I work for the universe, I work for God, and the soul is part of God, so that's when people come to me. And then also around 54 to 58, around the second Saturn, I'll see people, even older. I have an older Women of Colors group, African-American group at Kaiser, and they're all like between 50 and 64. And they're on their second Saturn, and they're like trying to figure out, well, what am I doing with almost the last phase of my life? So that's really they ask for people that come to me. But when I work at this clinic, I work in a place called Ladera Heights, which is a very old, well-known middle to upper class black area, and I get a lot of African Americans that are really interested in working with God and the universe, and to really find their purpose. And a lot of them had seeds that help with the negativity on the planet. For example, somebody might work with the post office. Some of the accounts we have are the MTA, which is a lot of African Americans, the post office, and what was the third one? LAUSD County. So a lot of DPSS workers, a lot of teachers, and a lot of them are people of color, and they are connected to God in many various ways, but traditional religion. Instead of the old way, I'm like, why don't we make him a co-creator with us? Why don't we ask and go back and forth and dialogue and create and open up to our own spirits and what's our body saying to us, what's our mind saying to us, what our heart really wants to do, and go ahead and do it. And then what happens is that the universe will, once you're on that path, the universe will step up to meet you and greet you and support you through that undertaking. And that's the excitement and the inspiration of working with spirit, is that it's there to help you with your own evolution of your soul.
Yeah. You know, there was something that happened to me in 2008, which my life just started turning really fast, which was I was 42 or heading towards 42, and I was thinking, this is a 7-year. Oh, no. But how do you come to incorporate spirituality and mental health? Because, you know, it's a fine line there when it comes to the realm that is not tangible as far as I can physically touch it and share it with someone else. You know, depending on your perspective, someone could be like, hey, I'm very spiritual. And everyone else is going, you're crazy.
Yeah, how did I incorporate it? And this is where the power of spirit helps, because I didn't even know what my spirit was. I just knew that sometimes I wouldn't feel happy about things, or I'd feel joy about things, and I was like, this energy is around me. And what I would do is, again, I would keep asking God. I worked at this clinic, and I know that people were hungry. When I started to work there, they had out of maybe 40 therapists, one black one, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And then 60% of the patients were African American. Yeah. And I was like, okay, this is a little, and then when I would do a presentation, I would get 12 referrals or 6, and it was ridiculous. They're like, I need someone who understands my story, my path, blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, there's a reason for me, and I was only part-time there, so it was only 1.5 therapists. So I said, God, I feel like you sent me here for a reason. Show me what you want me to do. So I wanted to do presentations in these big groups where most of them were people of color, and they're like, no, there's a line, a list. So I said, well, God, what do you want me to do? So I keep asking. Every day I'm dialoguing with the universe. That's how my workbook works with. I'm asking for signs and messages. Let me be of service is really a big part of, why most of us are here. On the higher level mastery path is to be of service. And sometimes you're of service just being yourself, just doing you, and then your inspiration inspires other people. So when I was trying to figure out, like, how do I incorporate both? Because I do, like, readings and healings, and then we're not supposed to touch patients, and then I'm not supposed to talk to people that are dead, or passed on.
Yeah.
But then I'm also a traditionally licensed therapist in New York, New Jersey, and California. I'm like, what the hell? And I was always nervous, always sweating bullets. But I said, God, if you want me to do this, keep it coming, and then more people would call. And I'm like, that's weird. So I kept asking at this clinic, is like, how do I get more involved? But I didn't want them to Google me and be like, okay, you're too down far the rabbit hole. And then all of a sudden I saw this opossum, and I was like, oh, this is big fat opossum walking across the street, and I'm into totem animals. And I'm like, that's interesting. Then I saw another opossum, and I was like, 2 in a week? That's bizarre. I saw a third one, and I looked up the meaning, and opossums play dead until the enemy's gone, and then they run away to safety.
Yeah.
So I figured, I got to play dead. So I said, so that to me was 3. It's a synchronicity. That's a message. So I played dead. I didn't say anything. And until it was safe. And then I was bumping into a coworker, and I said, I really want to talk in IOP, because I go to IOP, intensive outpatient program. There would be 50 people there, and like 44 were black. And I'm like, this is crazy, like, they need somebody they can hear to, because historically we haven't been able to speak up, and and then with all the new presidents, a lot of people, not just African Americans, a lot of people's traumas are coming up.
Yeah,
if
that's
it's
true.
Women or gay or and I feel like mental health is where that stuff's going to really show. So I just talked to went up to my coworker. I said, Lisa, and then all of a sudden her energy turned green, and that was the heart center, and I knew she was safe to ask. And I said, I know you work in this program. And I couldn't believe it. I usually meditate. I just turned green on me, like all this green energy around her aura. I basically saw her aura. And I said, I really need to incorporate more of this stuff. And she's like, oh, this is interesting. She's come into my office, and she had a big Buddha sitting there. And I was like, so I didn't know her office. And I was like, okay, this is safety. So she goes, why don't you do a presentation, blah, blah, blah. And I did it. And she said, oh, my gosh, you texted like 3 managers, and Carolyn's presentations are amazing. So that's how I got in. So I asked the universe, I said, show me what I need to do. He told me to be quiet as a crazy Aries, to, play dead until the time was right. And then I did, and then I got in, and then I liked it, and then it was more situations like that. So that's how you kind of, dialogue and incorporate, because I was nervous, but the kind of the agreement is, if I do your work, you're going to protect me, and God has protected me.
Right.
And he's helped me abundantly. I worked 10 years on call, just working with the universe. I worked on call at a hospital, and I did private work and readings and healings. And I was making more money than I did when I worked for the company.
That's good.
And then I was paying 2 rents up to $2,700. I don't know how I was doing it. And I had no full-time job. And that was just God, Yeah. So that's how I know it. But I also felt I loved doing it. I loved helping people, inspiring them. I love helping them to feel like this is what I'm really here for. And I love that light in their eyes that go on. And I shift their consciousness. And they're also, and then that seed is planted, and then their spirit grows. And God knows what they can do. People have done great things. So that's how I incorporated spirituality and mental health.
So let's go back to honor your spirit. And so if we're in an elevator and I know you wrote that book that I saw on Amazon. What's it about?
The soundbite, ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding.
Honor Your Spirit is my book about finding your purpose and path by listening to your spirit and your essence. It's also about living your life purpose by meditating, being present, and it talks about my story about how I became a therapist, an intuitive, and a healer, and I did it abundantly.
So it's the billionaire lifestyle, basically.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Hey, that's
absolutely.
That's
maybe I should say that instead. I'll say the billionaire lifestyle. See, Emmett.
And you know what's funny is because I made it the billionaire lifestyle because it really is kind of like what a billionaire would live. Because a billionaire is literally not worrying about money. Most of the ones that are billionaires, they're philanthropists, and they're enjoying their time versus because they don't have to worry about the money. And since money is a very new construct for us, and we've been psychobabbled into believing that it has the most weight when it is literally just a means of barter. if you get rid of that, and if you go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you have love, and you have your homeostasis is good, and you have food, and you have shelter, you got someone, a community that you with, then all you have to do is start ascending, versus what most of Americans are programmed, which is to chase this textile in the form that we use for currency. So if you get away from that, then you can really start to blossom, kind of like really what you're saying is, follow what you're into, follow what you came to this planet to do. And sometimes you don't know it, but you got to go try things to figure out what works. Because if you take one step on the path, the next brick will be revealed.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think a lot of times where you find it, when I was teaching class this weekend, there's the goal path of the real world, and then there's the spirit world in the physical world. And the goal is usually something, I got to do this and that. That's what I need to do. But the spirit is more of setting an intention and asking spirit to lead you. So it is about trusting and asking and looking at your heart as opposed to your mind. That's the exact opposite. The other path is like looking at your head. This is what I want to do. I'm going to figure out how to do it. When you go with your heart, then the spirit will jump up to lead you, because your heart is where your spirit lies. I feel like your soul's mind is in your heart. So I loved looking at incense and crystals and meditation and goodness and kindness and helping people heal and energy. And that was my spiritual aspect. But then I had to deal with the mental health and depression and anxiety, and I was getting drained by listening to people's stories. And I said, I like that feeling of spirit. How do I incorporate both without offending people? And then I just kept asking, and then they led the way. I also created this acronym, and I put that in my book, in saying your spirit is actually a function. It's a functioning energy. Because I ask people in class, what is the spirit? They just look at me like, crickets, nothing. So I said, your spirit is your guiding force. But how do you connect to it? So within the words, there's actually an acronym. So S means it's synchronistic and signs. So if you want to know what your spirit is, it's going to lead you to various signs and synchronicities. And that's why I said, well, I want to work as a healer, doing energy healing, and all of a sudden I meet somebody at an event. It's like, oh, they're looking for an energy healer at UCLA, and I'm like, that's crazy. I was just thinking that. How did that happen? I asked my spirit to lead me. So then I go and interview. Then years later, I end up on CNN, and I helped my practice for years. So that's S, that's synchronistic. P is like your spirit holds your purpose and your passion. So whatever you're passionate about, that's your purpose. And if you have a purpose, you become passionate about it. So I was passionate about spirituality, and that became my purpose. So no matter what my straight job was, working as a therapist, the passion was, overtaking, and it was incorporating things, and it was helping people to move quicker. I was getting messages about them, just insights. I don't read therapy clients, but sometimes I get aha moments with them, and that helps them to move forward,
Yeah.
And then I is intuition. So your spirit is intuitive. That's the language of spirit, is intuition. And it's also very intelligent. So what that means is that whenever you get those chills or the goosebumps or the God bumps, and you get that heaviness in your, that light feeling, or if you get the heaviness in your stomach, that's your spirit saying yes or no. So you get the aha moment and the chills, go ahead, move forward with whatever insight that came to you. And that's your intuition. Your intuition also comes through dreams. You might get a dream that says you should start a podcast called The Billionaire or something. And you're like, that's weird. I was just thinking about that. So that's the kind of things. You get a little notebook, you write it down, and you keep moving with it, keep asking and say, okay, God, you want me to do this? Tell me how to do it. So that's intuitive. Now, the intelligence of the spirit, and then the other I, is that the spirit is completely more intelligent than me, than my mind. Even though I'm bright, it's smarter than me, meaning that how can you incorporate spirituality and mental health? It will orchestrate, the universe and the source will orchestrate everything together to help you to fulfill what you want to do. So that's where you look at the totem animals, or you look at different things, or I feel like if this being of light, this consciousness, this source, can create a tree and a river and an ocean and land and people and heartbeats and everything else, it can kind of lead my life. It's a pretty intelligent being, right? So that's the intelligence. It's better, just ask and it will come. The R is rejuvenate and renew. You have to renew yourself, your spirit. So I always tell people they need to sage themselves, because what that does is clear your spirit is around you, it's your aura, and it's inside of you with your chakras. And you got to keep this vehicle strong and clean. So you got to like sage your spirit, use essential oils, eat healthy, but really do stuff to kind of renew yourself. Go to nature, spend some time in nature, taking in deep breaths. Helping when you take in deep breaths, you get your spirit to get stronger. So there's a lot of various ways you can do to make your spirit stronger. So then when you get those chills, your aha moment, you're clearer. You're like, oh, I know what this means. This is a lighter energy. Let me move forward. So that's the renewing, rejuvenate. That's the R. The other I is insightful. And insightful, and I'm missing the other one. And I'm missing it, but insightful. So your spirit is very, very insightful. And then it knows insight, meaning that you can, like some people are really good coaches or teachers, or they just know things. And inspiration, I don't know how I could forget that, meaning that anything that inspires you, that's your spirit. If it's singing or dancing or writing or poetry or music, and you feel inspired and you enjoy, that's your spirit trying to communicate with you. This is where you need to go. So the inspiration in spirit, and then insightful. The insight is, people are like, I don't know why people come up to me and ask me questions, and I don't have a degree. And I said, you're probably supposed to be a coach or a teacher. Yeah. So that's the insight. And then the last, the T, is it's trustworthy. If your spirit leads you, you got to trust it, and it's very truthful for you. It'll tell you what you need to do. If you want to, maybe become an accountant and you always failed math, and you go into the job interview and you have bad grades, you never do well, and your stomach feels heavy, your spirit's being truthful with you. It's like, maybe that's not the path. Maybe there's something else you need to do, and it will definitely lead you on a different path that is actually more joyous. So using that word as an acronym, that's how you learn how the spirit functions, and it helps you to fulfill your own mission and your own purpose.
Awesomeness.
Yeah.
So, one of these things that I've experienced, and I didn't even realize it. Remember I told you about that 2008 period? That's when I really became in tune with my chakras, because I was going through, it was the inklings of a divorce that was pending. And so, like, I knew exactly what was going on, but I didn't have the proof right in front of me. And I know my ex is probably like, how does he know what's going on? But here's the funny thing. This is how I knew, because, we've all had our heart broken before. But this was different. This was higher up. This was like a level up. And I was like, wow, that's in a different place where I feel this pain. So what is that? And that's what started me kind of on this path. I mean, it started a little bit before that, but it really started to open up like about 2010. So, now I can communicate with wonderful people like yourself on that level, because, I've been through one of those periods you were talking about. And I want to go into it and ask you this simple question. What made you decide to put it on paper, to write the book, Honor Your Spirit?
I guess it was an inspiration. I mean, I've had readings, people are like, oh, you need to write a book, blah, blah, blah. And then also I have 8 bookshelves, and that's how one of the things, how your passion is, you can do it all day long. Like, I loved reading. I won a reading award. And I was reading, and I said, I'm reading all these books. I have something to say. Also, chronologically, seeing people change, seeing their lives change, figuring out an acronym, and like that helps people, seeing these great stories of synchronicity. And I said, I have to put this down to inspire people, because I write articles for the National Examiner online. I think it's gone down now, but I would write little articles and people really loved them. So then eventually I was like, I need to write a book. So I was in a couple books, some books through ARE, Association of Research Enlightenment, like a chapter here, or the Spiritual Women and Spiritual Entrepreneurs. I was in a book like that, and I wrote an article, and people really liked it. And I always knew that I was a writer, so I just felt like I needed to. And it took me a long time, because some of the difficulty, like when I almost died in a hospital, I didn't really want to relive it and rewrite it. And some of the things where I'm embarrassed or hurt or in pain, but Spirit really kind of always, like a cat, let me land on my feet as I reframe things, and realizing that when I died in a hospital, and then I was an energy healer, I would know that there's something wrong with the hospital system.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are dying for medical mistakes and malfunctions and, dirty hands and septics that kills you. And I heard so many stories, and I could literally be there with compassion, say to people, I was there. So other people read the story and they're like, oh, my God, I went through that too. And now I'm into holistic health and all that other stuff. So I felt like a lot of my stories were helping people when I was speaking, and I need to put it down on paper to help people. And then I'm working on my second book, which is going to continue this process of helping your spirit to kind of heal you in many, many different ways. Because once you get the spiritual perspective of things, you realize that sometimes you're not a victim, but you're a victor, that these things can be turned around from tragedies into triumphs. So I wanted to inspire people on another level, and the book was a great idea to do.
A question just came to mind about how people carry trauma with them. So, and I've heard this term before where trauma is carried through the DNA, where, for instance, the most notable is the trauma that people of color in this country may be carrying from generation to generation. Do you have anything to speak on that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's huge. I just being African American and having fibroids and seeing all the black women working in the hospital have fibroids. I mean, I think that has to do with a lot of trauma, not just, because we eat like chicken or whatever. I think it has to do with all the trauma of all those rapes and slavery and all this other stuff. And I think we're carrying it in our energy field. And certain, prostate cancer is huge with African American men, and being, like their power has been stifled, for so long. And I just, because if you look at the body as a temple, you realize that our creative power centers are attacked, and also different parts of our body are attacked. But I do believe there's, like when you're talking about that pain in your heart, it was a soul ache. It probably wasn't happened just this lifetime, but other lifetimes, and it may have been your DNA activating, or a past life with this person, or a full wound, a deep, deep wound. But I feel like that's what's being acted out right now in the United States. That's why people are so traumatized, because it's not just them that are going through it. It's like every group of minority, like the Middle Eastern being attacked, the Filipino, the Latinos, the African Americans, the gay, every group is being attacked, and we're feeling it historically. Like, didn't we get through this already? And I feel like I definitely feel like there's DNA, because think of you're getting your parents' eyes, nose, and everything else, so you're going to get their genes. And those genes are little, like, this is how they create your eyes look just like them. They're little cells, and they're little memory banks. And I think it's foolish for us to think that if it carries the physical characteristics, why not the emotional and spiritual too? And I feel like that many times that we are reenacting our parents' own pain and trauma. My father had 16 brothers and sisters, and one of the brothers had moved to England, and we lost touch with him. And a lot of his siblings, his children, were contacting me online, and one of them I found out is a social worker, and I'm like, how is that? And like generations of diff, but a lot of them are in, another one does substance abuse counseling. So how does that happen? I feel like we carry the genes of our ancestors, and my grandfather was known to be kind of like a shoemaker, but also like kind of a counselor for other people. So I feel, and my father was a therapist, so I definitely feel like there's DNA, and there's DNA fighting it out, and I can go deep into this stuff, but you see it all over the news, Yeah. There's also, go ahead.
No. What kind of healing do you do? Is it, so if someone comes to you and says, I got gallstones, or, internal physical manifestations, or is it more getting them on track with their spirit? You tell me so that we can have clarity.
Yes, my energy healing, I do a couple different things. I do Reiki, which is a hands-on healing Japanese energy healing modality. I do something called Pranic, which is from India. It's using the energy field in different ways. I also do something called Theta Healing, which is interesting. This woman in Idaho created it, Viana Steibel, which we can actually shift the beliefs that are stored within your body. And this is an interesting one. Theta healing. Theta is an energy state. Like we're in beta right now. When we meditate, we go to alpha, and you go above, you go to theta, and it helps heal your past lives. It also helps heal your ancestral. So that's the DNA, the ancestral healing, and genetic healing, and then soul beliefs. So we have a lot of beliefs that are stored from us, from our ancestors, from our past lives. Like our soul to me is a big, huge, drive, like computer drive, hard drive, and we have all these different experiences that are loaded onto them, and we pull from them and different things can be triggered. So Theta Healing, this woman created, where you go up to God and ask Him for permission to heal these past life wounds or these genetic wounds, and it really, really works. I do that at the major HMO I work, and you'd be surprised, and that a lot of people globally have very similar issues, like not feeling good enough, worthy, not feeling deserving. I feel desirable. I can create my mission. So I go around and activate people. And the ThetaHealing.com, she has millions of people that have done that. Luckily, I was able to train with a teacher. And I'm really good at emotional stuff because I believe our emotions fuel our body. So if you're constantly, and I really like the book, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. So when people have back problems, a lot of times they're not feeling supported, and that's what our back represents, so the energy gets stored there. When people have problems with being flexible, you're laughing about that? Kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, you just hear things and you go,
Yeah, it makes therapy so much easier. When people are like, oh, my back, I'm like, when did you lose support in your life? They're like, oh, and this happened, that happened. How'd you know that? But it's like, yeah, our body is our unconscious mind. That was by Candace Pert. She found the opiate receptor. She has passed on, but she was a researcher, I think, at Johns Hopkins. And we have receptors of actually cannabis, cannabis, I think it's called cannabis, and then we have opiate receptors. So we can, if we're happy and positive and we can get those released, we can release positive, almost drugs within our own systems. That's why people are craving marijuana and craving things. We actually have it within us. So she found the opiate receptor, but she wrote this CD, Your Body is Your Subconscious Mind. So a lot of times when people aren't flexible, they'll have hip problems or knee problems. And it's not surprising when people get older, they have that. He's laughing. You get excited. It's funny. Yeah, or neck problems is not seeing somebody else's perspective. Like seeing, like, when you see somebody else's perspective, you can turn your neck. If you can't,
stop describing me, all right?
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, hit it on the head. Yeah.
I just started doing yoga.
Or your eyes are not working. What can't you see? When I was trying to get this spirituality to the clinic, I would get this vertigo and these headaches, and I realized that they were trying to block off. And I had to go to the doctor for it. These were real symptoms. This is not like, fake symptoms and the somatization. But then when I worked with things and thought about it, I felt like they were trying to clog my connection to source. So I said, no, I'm going to do this work here. And then, then it went away. So it's incredible how your body can tell you what's going on in your life. So I get into the mind-body connection. I also do something called soul retrieval, and there's shamans doing that. I'm not a shaman, but I do help people. I can see where parts of their soul and their energy field is lost. Like sometimes I'll meet people and I'll say, what happened to you between age 20 and 25? They're like, oh, I was abused then, and I just tuned out. And I was like, well, part of you is gone, let's bring it back. So I'll do this meditative technique where I actually bring back part of that soul essence, which actually, think of a glass that breaks, and all these pieces shatter, and like one piece you get left that's like underneath the refrigerator that you can't get to. Well, that piece has its own little life somewhere else, and sometimes you can pull it back and put it back into them and have them reconnect with aspects of themselves and then kind of meld it together, and the people feel more whole. And I learned how to do that because when I almost died in the hospital, I felt like part of me got stuck in the hospital. I literally almost died. I felt like it was like to die. And
so what landed you in the hospital on your deathbed?
Yes, fibroids.
Oh.
Well, it wasn't on my deathbed. I was okay. They just had to take them out, but I ended up hemorrhaging a bit, and the hospital was very, very sloppy. It was a surgery. It was a myomectomy where they pull out the fibroids, and I just kept bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, and they didn't give me enough blood quick enough, and they didn't use gloves. It became septic. And then what happened, I started to get really cold, and all of a sudden I popped out of my body, and I was floating with the stars, and I was like, this is beautiful. Wow. And I'm like, why am I floating without, wings? And then I realized that I was going to the other side, and I got really nervous. And then I said, wait. And this man says, stop. He's like, you have to do your life review. And I'm like, what? It was like, oh, my God,
So did you have a life review?
I did. It was so quick. I don't remember. Oh. All I remember, he asked me to put my hand on this round bubble thing, and he looked like a court jester to me, like floating around the universe.
Yeah.
And when I put my hand on it, it just flew through my life, and all I remember is that I felt like I was in kindergarten. Whatever I was here to do, I did not accomplish. I was like, and I was 37,
yeah.
And I said, oh my gosh, I really have to go back. Now, I did say, wait, I want to meet God. And way in the corner, way back, I saw this piercing white light, but they wouldn't let me look at it.
You're like, hey.
What's that?
God's like, hey, not ready.
I know, right? Hey, I know, like, get back there. But then what happened is I started getting nervous because I knew that the longer I was out there, the harder it would be to go back. Then I said, I want to go back. But then they showed me God, and I realized that he was everything. He was the universe. He was the stars. He was the plants. He was the books. He was the table, the chairs. Like, everything energetically is God's energy, and we're living in his energy field. And I just felt this sense of unconditional love that I never felt before. And then I floated back in my body, and I was freezing, like death freezing. And then when I was in the hospital room, and I finally woke up, they gave me covers. I opened my eyes, and I could see the past. And I blinked my eyes again, I could see the present. I blinked my eyes, and I could see the future. There was no darkness. There was no division between past, present, and future. It was just a blink of an eye. It was the craziest thing.
Oh, that would be so awesome.
It was cool. And then I would tell the nurse, I said, you get the wrong medication. She said, you just woke up. What are you talking about? I said, it's the wrong medication. I saw it. And she's like, goes out. She said, this is the wrong medication. How did you know that? Mm-hmm. I said, then you're going to go out there and tell these people that I'm crazy. And I said, I'm not crazy. I blinked again. I would see the past. I blinked to see the future. And it was just crazy. It was the weirdest thing. And then it finally got back to normal. But it was when I was coming from the other side, I realized there really is no time, It's just a construct of the earth plane because it's heavy and dense and negative, and then it makes everything move slower.
Yeah,
so it was a cool experience.
I'm always wondering about that because, I understand that energetically, I work in sciences for the most of my life. And for every action, there literally is a reaction or a different charge. And for all the positive out there, there has to be something that has the opposite polarity to it. And it just seems like right now that opposite polarity from the good, from the beautiful, from the high vibration is manifesting at crazy speeds. And I always think of hip hop because I listen to the music now and it is so low vibrationally, but it's so popular. Which is so bizarre to me, because I was a DJ for a while. And that's one of the reasons I got out, because the music literally went too low in vibration and I wasn't feeling good about it anymore. And they were like, but you're really good. I'm like, I'm out, done, deuces. So let me get my words right here. Most people have a fear of transitioning on. Do you have that fear, or you have something to do and you welcome it when the time comes?
Probably neither. Well, I do. It's a little bit of both that you said. I don't want to leave before I finish my job. So if that answers one of your questions, I really don't want to leave before I finish what I'm supposed to do, because I feel like once I finish, I'm not ever coming back here again, And that could be a family belief. My mother always say, when I leave. She was always talking about that. And then she did pass on, and it felt like, okay, she's been wanting that. I asked my dad, he's a minister, and I said, do you believe in past lives? he said, well, I don't know if I believe in past life, but I know I don't want to ever come back here again. So maybe it's a family belief, but I just feel like God gave me a task, let me finish it, and then I'll go when I'm ready. And I'll feel fulfilled. I don't ever want to be pulled back because of this and that and do that, and blah, 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 so that's a strong thing. Yeah, right now that something I got hit by a car, I think I feel, I didn't get to do this.
Yeah.
I didn't get to meet Oprah, something. I mean, a little bit, but then that kind of, that pulls your ass back. I'm not coming back here.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I am, and this is a recent thing, I suddenly realized that this is the best time in recorded history to be alive because you have access to everything. I mean, no time, and I say recorded history because we could have been at a similar level or far past where we are now. It's just that time is done, and we started over again. But I'm looking like 30, 40, 50, 60 years. I'm like, what will it be? Because right now, all the things that were crazy science fiction when I was a child is reality. I'm like, I look at my watch, and my phone rings, and I hit my watch and, hey, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah. Or it's just a miraculous time. And I'm not talking just technologically. I'm talking spiritually, too, because now people are becoming aware because we're not in this dark time where there were gatekeepers to the information that was available to the people, and they were only parsing it out, saying to control them more or less. And that's where, to me, organized religion comes into play. It was more about control of the masses versus spirituality of the masses. But that's neither here nor there. I digress.
I know, that's absolutely. I think that's why spirituality is getting so huge, because people are realizing they can connect directly to Source or themselves or their higher selves, and they don't need to pay the church to do it. So, and I do believe that duality is part of the earth plane to grow and to learn. And I also, we're going through something called the Uranus-Pluto opposition, which happened 60 years ago in 1960s, with all the protests were happening, and that makes people to stand up for their rights, their souls. And it takes 60 years to do a cycle, so it's going to end in 2020. So that's why you see all the protests coming up again. It's like part of like the soul contract that we all have. And it is a powerful time to be on the planet because we're going from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age.
The feminine age.
In the Aquarian age.
That's one of the things that I noticed. I think I began noticing it in the late 80s, where I started to see women really come into their own. And I never understood that song by the Fifth Dimension. This is the dawn of until recently. And I was like, I get it now. And
the moon is in the 7th hour, and Jupiter arises for the stars.
I was like, what are they on?
I know, right? Now you're like, okay. We need it now since our president at the start of the Second World War,
Yeah.
The 45th.
So how can people contact you?
My website's intuitivesoulhealing.com. And, that's the best way to get me. And then my number, my office is 323-782-9085. Also on Facebook, I have a group called How to Work with the Universe. And I post things about synchronicity, signs, messages, full moons, new moons, all this cool stuff about universal knowledge. And you can just ask to be part of it. Just answer some questions, but it's a small group. It's like 200 now, but it's building. How to Work with the Universe. And my fan page is Honor Your Spirit. That's where my book is, Honor Your Spirit. And my books are on Amazon, Honor Your Spirit. And the workbook is How to Work with the Universe.
Yeah, awesome. I'm going to tell you something that's really bizarre because I feel such this weird connection. And I think we made contact almost a year ago. And it just, and it fell into the crack because, and then something said, go revisit every contact you've had. And you were there. And I sent the notice out saying, hey, I'm sorry, my bad. And you came right on. So thank you very much. Now, here's the one last question that I have. I don't know how old you are, but you're probably younger than I am. So anyway, let's take it back to when you were 19 years old. And let's say right now you're sitting on your couch and you're watching TV, chilling, just doing your thing. You're like, I got a day off. And the doorbell rings, and you get up and go to the door, and you open the door, and there's your 19-year-old self, and says, look, I'm about to embark upon this journey. I'm not sure. So what advice do you have for me to your 19-year-old self?
Wow. Whoa, that's a deep question.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you did. I have a water mouth, and I can't think of an answer now. I would probably say it's all going to work out, and always go with what's right and with what's in your heart.
Awesomeness.
Over anything, yeah.
And the last question. What is the one thing that you can give the Billionaire Lifestyle audience from you to them?
What can I give them?
Yeah, as far as advice.
Oh, advice. Okay, because the phone broke up. Really, to listen to your heart, to live the best life, and to feel the most fulfilled. Honor your spirit.
Awesome.
The energy inside of you. Yeah.
I want to thank you for being on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast.
Thank you so much. This is awesome.
Cool. And this is how I end the show. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. So, and you know what I'm going to say because I say it every podcast. You're going to go to bed or you're going to be before bed. But at some point, you're going to disrobe and get in the shower or the bathtub, and then you're going to get out. So then here's what you must do, because you got to connect with yourself. You're going to look in the mirror, but before you look in, you got to wipe the fog off so you can get a clear view. And I want you to get close. I want you to get about 12 to 6 inches away from the mirror and start and then move your way back. But here's the beginning. You're going to look directly into the iris, which represents a galaxy. That galaxy lets you know how special you are and how you are connected to everything, because that reflection is reflected all around us in the omniverse. And then as you move back, I want you to take inventory of your wrinkles, your moles, your crooked nose, your eyebrow. One is higher than the other. That's you. Whatever it is, love you. And when you find another living being who has those universes like you, treat them as you would like to be treated, as most of the doctrine says. And with that, just go in love and feel with your heart. And don't believe that we are different, because we are more the same than we are different. Till next time, love you all. Go in peace.